We did nothing to help all of those people that Doge put out of work in the state of Alabama. We didn't do anything for people who need food on the table. We did nothing to help the farmers. We didn't do anything for health care. We didn't do anything to grow jobs. So to me, that's our primary purpose as legislators. We're supposed to take care of the state and the citizens' needs, and we did not do any of that.
All righty, welcome back. Alabama Politics This Week. Josh Boone, David Person, and we are happy to be joined by an absolute legend in the Alabama legislature and in Alabama in general. Representative Mary Moore is with us now. We're so happy to get you back on. I know you've been on before, but yeah, we always like to get your perspective on the session. I think actually that was when you were on last time, was the last session ending. We got you on to talk about what had happened and how things had gone. And I guess just in general, how did you feel this session went? Were there any wins? Were there any losses? How do you feel like things went?
Well, I think that the one win that we did have was the last day. That bill that they had that would require you to register as a Republican or Democrat to vote in the primary election, that bill did die. And I think it was a combination of things that helped us with that bill, because quite a few Republicans didn't like that bill when it came through the House. But with the Republic cult that we're dealing with, even though we got a large number of Republicans that went to the microphone and asked them to carry that bill over, they didn't, because it was part of their national agenda and part of the group of bills that Trump wants them to pass throughout the 30 some states that are ran by Republicans, so that somewhere he could request that we postpone the November election. So that was one bill. And the first bill we had this session dealt with voter integrity. And what is that? And when you look at all of our secretaries of state in this modern time has been Republican.
Right.
So what is the integrity that they're talking about? And when we asked for information, only thing we could get was that somebody said they questioned the integrity of the voting process in the state of Alabama, but they couldn't say who that person was. So they put a commission in place to study it. They couldn't say who was a member of the commission, but the commission found one voting violation during the time they were researching, but they couldn't tell us what county, what city, what precinct that it happened in. So Trump has them, and it's across probably a 30 state wide situation where he was trying to get them to pass certain bills so that at some point he'll come back and say, well, those states need to postpone the November election. And even though some people said that wouldn't happen, what I tried to remind them was this: they'll do it because of the level of ignorance that they're in, and it would take us years in court to fight it. So now you
Right.
end up all the way to the 2028 election, and you would not have elected a new Congress. So that bare majority they had, they would have. So
Yeah.
we as citizens, we just have to be vigilant at all times on the things that they won't try to do in order to set up this uh, dictatorship that they want in place.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we didn't have,
That's
that was about the only win for me. Many losses, and I say we had many losses because we did nothing to help all of those people that Doge put out of work in the state of Alabama. We didn't do anything for people who need food on the table. We did nothing to help the farmers, especially now with the problem in Iran, and the fact that that one of the elements that they need to make their fertilizers come from come from through that Strait of Hormuz. So we didn't do anything for health care. We didn't do anything to grow jobs. So to me, that's our primary purpose as legislators. We're supposed to take care of the state and the citizens' needs, and we did not do any of that.
Yeah, no, you're right, and it's what got me a lot was you had Democrats had some really good bills. There were some bills to help farmers. There were
Right.
some bills to help workers. There were some bills to help restore the overtime tax repeal. There were some bills that Democrats had on the table that would have put money and food on the table for a lot of workers and a lot of families who really need it right now.
Mm-hmm.
And those things were fairly well ignored. Is it? Let me ask you this: Is it frustrating to see that so often Republicans do things in this legislature that do hurt the common working folks in Alabama, and then don't pay a political price for that?
Well, it can be frustrating, but the other thing that they attacked a lot and make mockery of is religion. But for those of us that are truly believers in the living Christ, he gives us, I guess, a sense of understanding to diminish some of the frustration. I think the last 2 days of session, I went to the floor, and that's what I said to the speaker. It does not make sense that you all won't compromise, and that's the art of politics. They won't compromise on anything. They're not going to let any of our bills get in committee. And the sad part about it is that the majority of the bills that Democrats do pass are their bills out of committee. That if you're on the budget committee or one of their committees, they'll give you one of their bills. But every year we drop a series of bills to try to grow and make Alabama better and its citizens' life better. But they won't even put them in committees such as we still need Medicaid expansion more now than ever. We need, instead of worried about how many sweets somebody buy with their SNAP benefits, people need more SNAP because we've got more and more people that have been removed from federal jobs. So, it can be frustrating, but at my age, I'm the old lady I used to talk about when I was young. And old ladies pray all the time. Everything gonna be laid out with, God just bless us. So I'm in that zone now. So
Oh, that's great. Uh,
um, Representative, I want to ask you about, and I know this is not in your district, but I want to ask you about a story that I read about Houston County. Apparently, there's a concern there that, according to the story, hundreds, if not thousands, of people may may have been removed from the voting rolls or deemed to be ineligible to vote. And there's sort of this, I guess, this sort of purging that we know we've talked about and heard about going on. Do you have any concerns about what we may be facing here in the state of Alabama in terms of people thinking that they are eligible to vote, whether it's in Houston County or in your area there north of Birmingham or anywhere else in the state?
well, not only there, but Representative Drummond brought that up during one of our meetings, and she was saying that when she ran for mayor in Mobile, that between the after the primary election going into the runoff, she got complaints of people whose names were removed from the roll from the primary election going into the runoff election. I dropped a bill that said that once the election season has started, that they could not tamper with the voting rolls, period. That they couldn't remove anybody, couldn't review them to remove anybody. Because when you get a group of people who are so weak minded, and that's what the Republic cult used to be, the Republican Party is all about now. They're led by a weak minded leader, and all of their minds are weak. So when you're weak, you're constantly coming up with ways to make you appear to be strong. So anything or anybody that you think would prevent you from being in those positions, you seek to eliminate. So that's the process that they go through. But I did drop that bill. They did not put it in a committee. Once Drummond brought it to my attention, because that's one thing I continue to tell our Democrats. We got to be bold in this fight that we have to keep democracy. And anytime we hear something, we need to do our research and try to make it a law to change the wrong that they're doing, even though they don't think anything they're doing is wrong. So we did drop a bill to address that issue.
I want to ask you one other thing. You talked about them, people on the other side of the aisle. I think the phrase you used was mocking religion. So they like to mock religion. The president of the United States has been in the news recently for doing things that many of us who are Christians believe were certainly mocking religion, maybe even blasphemous. What do some of your Christian conservative right-wing Republican colleagues say to about what the president has been doing, or do they have any reaction at all?
Nothing. Last year I went to the microphone because went to get my hair done one day, and the beautician was talking about Doge and Social Security. They had 250 people that went to Social Security to clock in that day, and none of them was allowed to clock in. They were all fired. So I went to the microphone and asked, where is our compassion? Where is our belief in God that what they're doing is wrong? They say absolutely nothing. This last few weeks with the war in Iran and all of the shenanigans that the president, not one word, but they are not allowed. That's why I refer to them as a cult. Because free thinking people, I'm sure 70 some people don't think exactly alike down to the period every day. That's a level of sickness or illness that's going on that every one of y'all think the same way. Nobody has an opinion. Nobody can free stand up and say anything. The only time they got up in unison and spoke is when they had that bill on the floor to say you must register as a Republican. Why? Because many of them in their districts are portraying that that the only reason they're Republican is because that's the only reason they can get elected. But we got a Democratic spirit. That's the lie they tell working men and women in their district every day. So they don't want to put on paper that I'm a Republican.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's 100% true. I think that there's been this long running little secret a lot of times among a lot of lawmakers that we're not going to call ourselves a Democrat. But we're going to essentially behave, and we're going to govern in a lot of ways like Democrats do. Now we're going to back some really stupid things and say publicly that we support really stupid things, but in private we're going to govern like Democrats are when it comes right down to a lot of these financial issues and social issues as well. And so they need those folks to. I mean, and we could call them out. We know who they are. I mean, we've seen them in some of these races, and they rely on Democrats and independents coming into those primaries and electing them. And so, what? So let me ask you this, and we'll let you go, Ms. Moore, after this. But what do you think Democrats need to do? Because there seems to be almost this stigma on the word Democrat itself, where you see people so often, even if a person. Even if a lawmaker or a candidate says, all of the things that that are on their platform are beneficial to this person, this voter, that voter will say, "Well, you're a Democrat, though. I can't vote for a Democrat." What do Democrats need to do to change that mindset?
I don't know. I think it's a God situation because what happened, we have heard the lies for so long from Republicans. To give you an example, Wes Allen is running for whatever he's running for. He said, well, them liberals on the other side was mad when I stopped curbside voting. When have we had curbside voting in the state of Alabama? Tell me. So their lies are repeated because all the media that you expect to get the truth from have been bought off by him. And then he said, when I took all of the illegal aliens off the roll, how many was that? One? Because they are the ones who have controlled the voting rolls for quite some time. Even when the Democrats was in charge, y'all, we had Republican Secretary of States. So when did all of these illegal aliens get on? Did the Republicans put them on there? So, the thing is, it's like my teacher used to tell me, if you tell a lie for so long, it's just like the truth. And so they have lied and they have access to more media than Democrats have. I just suggest to my colleagues, they got to do the same thing that I do. When I'm out of session, I try to go to wherever people are. I get to my neighborhood meetings, whatever information I can give out, I give it out. But we just got to get out and just spread the news. In biblical times, they said when the prophets sat outside the city gates, they sat there for hundreds of years telling the story that Jesus was coming. We might not have hundreds of years, but we do every time. We should not be afraid to say, I'm a Democrat and this is what I stand for. Unfortunately, you got too many people that are. So it's going to take some type of higher power to create in them the courage to stand firm and stand firm on the truth and who they are.
I think that's about as good advice as we could possibly get. And listen, Representative Moore, we really do appreciate you and what you've done and what you do and the fight that you continue to fight there in the legislature. And we hope you stick around for a good long time and keep that fight going.
Appreciate you. I appreciate this opportunity because I appreciate what both of you are doing. You're getting the truth out to people, and that's what counts. And at some point it might not seem as though people are listening to you, but they are. And I get my news from the beauty shop. So, I just listen, and you'll be surprised how many older people spend their time listening to podcasts and reading during the day. And I'm just proud of them because when I hear them talking about the different podcasts that they're listening to and the truth that they're getting, I think both of you gentlemen ought to be proud of the work that you're doing.
Well, we appreciate that so much. That means a lot coming from you, especially, and we're gonna try to keep it up ourselves. And so, thank you so much for spending some time with us this morning.
Thank y'all, and have the best summer ever.
All right, you too.
We'll do it. Thank you. Thank you. That is Representative Mary Moore. All right, we're gonna slide out. We'll come back in just a minute. It's Alabama Politics This Week.